started. This is for this week, for this class, and it's recording from the right channel. Okay. All right. So I hope you guys had a nice break. Even though this class, has no impact, from the break itself.
Yeah.
If you have Monday classes, you definitely get one day off. All right, so we'll go take a quick look at on the power server first, just to go over a few topics. Somebody wrote, this article, so I'm just kind of referring to the original source here. Well, it looks like, there will be variants of Linux for desktops. The one that I'm using right now is called XFCE4. It's really kind of archaic. It has about the same, look and feel as Windows 98. Okay, even though it's really robust and all that stuff, but it's not really modern. But some people have been talking about Android desktop, which is basically Android, but it's also scaled up to work with like a desktop or a larger device. It makes sense because there are Android devices that have 1080p resolutions already, and when your tablet has a resolution of 1080p. Well, you're not dealing with a small little device anymore. You really have the resolution to run multiple screens and stuff like that. So Android is actually moving from smaller devices onto larger devices, as opposed to Windows is going from larger devices to the smaller devices. So that's interesting because it comes from a unexpected source or unexpected direction. And the nice thing, of course, of using Android desktop is you can run all the Android apps. Okay, because they're all backward compatible, so you can run all the Android apps that you already have purchased, but except it's on a desktop setting. So it's kind of interesting. I don't think too many people in this class are interested in that one. How many people play Valve games? Okay, so do you guys know about this one or not? I think it came out maybe a day or two ago, this news. Well, some of the Valve games can look at your DNS cache. DNS stands for Domain Name System, okay, which is a mechanism by which your computer can look up valve.com and then find out the IP address corresponding to valve.com, okay. But every time you use your browser, you look up your moodle.losreals.edu, the DNS service is used, okay. And it looks up the name and it finds out the IP address so that your computer can actually connect to the IP address. And we're still doing okay so far with that concept of DNS. Yes. So what Valve is doing is to go through the cache on your computer to see most recently what websites you have been to. Okay? And they're interested in that because they want to find out whether people have been going to cheat sites. Okay? Now we are not just talking about chat sites where people can just kind of talk about all the different ways to cheat a game. They are looking for specific URLs to cheat engines where a person would not go to normally, but it's the cheat itself, as a software, as a program, will try to contact that particular website. So they're basically confirmation that someone is running a cheat in the game and not just looking up information and say, oh, okay, I want to find out what other people have been doing. And they're using this to, basically stop, cheaters. And according to Valve, they have banned about 500 people because of this.
Really?
Yep. But with this, they are not only just, they can look at your browse history beyond, just your, gaming related type of thing. They can look up other things too. So the question is, is it an invasion of privacy?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Well,
it depends on what they do with that information.
It depends on what they do with that information, exactly. You can actually read, I think it's this one here. Yeah, if you look up this one, the second link, that one is the response of Gabe Newell, which is the CEO of Valve. And if you just kind of read through his response here, is here. So they want to kind of earn and keep the trust of gamers. And they basically are saying, no, we're not selling your information. We are not, looking at any other thing except for, whether some people have been going to cheat sites or not, or using cheat engines. Okay, actually using cheat engines. That's what they're catching. Not just people who want to go to certain discussion boards and find out what other people have been doing. So that's interesting. And then the last one is DARPA. How many people know what is DARPA? No one. That's the research branch of the DoD, of the Department of Defense. Okay, so it's a branch of the DoD. In fact, if you just look up DARPA, it's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's the research branch of the Department of Defense, basically. And they have been training people, cadets and midshipmen. Basically, these are all low-level officers to get them ready for cyber warfare. In other words, they have to know how to secure computers, and they will also learn how to attack, other computers. The objective is by year 2017. I'm just going to point out the sentence here. The objective is by year 2017, the DARPA wants to train up to 4,000 people, so that they will, kind of bring the Department of Defense, up in terms of readiness for cyber warfare. Do you think 4,000 will be enough?
Sure.
Yeah. What are they up against? The question is
Anonymous.
China. They're up against the entire world. Exactly. If you can name a country, if a country exists on the map
And has at least some form of internet.
and has some form of internet access, it can be one of the adversaries. Okay, it doesn't have to be the largest country. It doesn't have to be a high-tech country, and that's why I think computer is interesting, because it really makes the world flat. There's no manufacturing capacity to talk of. There's no need to talk about do you have this special machine that can machine titanium metal. It's just a computer and internet access. Okay, so this is kind of interesting because it ties into the earlier discussions that we have talked about in this class about the USS Zumwalt and also the X-47B. One is a destroyer that is a floating data center, and the other one is a autonomous drone that can basically complete missions with no human intervention. Because all of those things, kind of opens up the possibility of a hack, right? Because if those systems, if those computers are compromised, then we have big issues. Whereas the older hardware had very little computers on it, and as a result, it's not going to be as big of a deal. It's not as exposed as these new hardware is to cyber attack. And I just want to point out there's a no food policy in the classroom. So I know that it's a time when someone may be hungry, but please do not eat in the classroom. Okay. So, but 4,000 security experts, I think personally, with no research whatsoever, seems to be a relatively small number. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
It's kind of small, okay? Because they are really up against the entire world. I mean, there can be domestic hackers too. I mean, it doesn't have to be hackers from a foreign country. They can be domestic as well. So 4,000 people is really a small number. I mean, that's really a tiny fraction of what I think is needed. So that's kind of interesting. But the last one here, it ties into this class because it seems like the demand of computer security experts is going to continue to outgrow the supply for some time to come. I don't think we're going to catch up in 5 to 10 years. There's just no way we can crank out enough people to fill those needs. So that's interesting to you guys because it kind of gives you an idea of where you want to go, where you can find employment that is almost more how should I put it? More secure in a way, because they can't really fill those requirements. I mean, there will be they can only hire more people. If you look at the app market, that's kind of like a bubble. I think the app market thing is a bubble because at some point it will saturate. But for security, there's no way to saturate because it's not a market where you're just, oh, we are running out of ideas, okay? Nothing, we cannot have any more, we cannot hire any more developers. Because with security, you're dealing with adversaries, and they can always keep changing and continue the race, basically. So that's basically all I have to go over here. Now we are back to the class. We'll go over the previous, or the homework assignment that was due about 10 minutes, 12 minutes ago, the while statement one. And then we'll talk about the new homework assignment. There's a new one. Right, save it. Open. All right, so here's your, is that your homework?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is your homework assignment. And we'll go ahead and trace it. Okay? It won't take too long to trace it. How many people initially thought this is going to be a long one? Did it turn out to be long?
No.
All right, so let's go ahead and trace it. On line 1, we are initializing x to 1. On line 2, we are comparing x to 30. It is true that 1 is less than 30. So we go into the loop, we go to line 3, and we double the value of x, because 1 plus 1 is 2. We store that back into x becomes 2. And then where do we go?
Back to line 2.
Back to line 2? Exactly. Okay, this is not a conditional statement. With a conditional statement, you just execute a branch once and you're done. But with a loop, you have to go back and reevaluate the condition to see whether you have another iteration or whether it's time to exit the loop. 2 is less than 30 is true. Go back to line 3. Now we want to double this value again. I'm going to use a trick here. It's a spreadsheet trick. So I can use a cell plus a cell value to compute the value of another cell. Now the reason why this is handy is because now I can just say, okay, copy and paste. I can copy even more and paste. And now I can say, oh, back to line 2, x is less than 30 is false. And then where do we go? Toast. That's it. Are there any questions other than the one I just did with the copy and paste? Yep.
You could have saved us a whole minute had you shown us that.
Exactly. But that is also, why spreadsheets are useful, because you can calculate the value of a particular cell using the values of other cells, and that really is the true value of a spreadsheet. We are only using it as a table in this class, but it's really good for calculations. That's what it's really good at. All right, so that's the homework assignment, and we're going to move on to the current homework assignment. We have a new one. Let's go take a look at the new homework assignment. It is down here called nested assignments. Nested statements, sorry, nested statements. We'll take a look at the homework. I think we know how to do it already, but it starts off with something that looks kind of nasty because I intentionally left out the indentation. That's the first thing you have to do, is to re-indent this particular algorithm the way that we have been doing things in this class. So how do you indent a program that has no indentations? How do you, where do you start? You have to identify the beginning and the end of all the constructs. Okay? So how do you do something like that? Well, the while is, how do you identify the end of this while?
Else?
No.
The very last end while.
While ends with and while, if ends with and if. However, at some point you might see that, hey, but how do I know which end if to use for a particular if? So you have to kind of figure that part out, okay? What statement is contained inside what other statement? And I suggest that you work from the inside out instead of from the outside in, okay? If you work from the inside out, which means you find the most nested part, you do the indentation first, and then you find the next most, nested part, you do the indentation. I think that might be easier, but you can use whatever method you want to use to put the indentations back into this program. Are there any questions? There are only two kinds of statements here that need indentation. One is a while statement, the other one is a if statement, a conditional statement. But there are two conditional statements here, one contained within the other one. So you kind of have to figure out how to find out which one is containing which other one, and then do the indentations correctly. Any questions about this one? Okay. So the next thing you have to do after you put the indentations back into the pseudocode is to start a new sheet and then do your trace on sheet 2. So you'll have to trace this algorithm on a new sheet. You will have to label the columns accordingly, just like I've been doing in this class, and then trace it. That's your new homework assignment. It's due in a week. Are there any questions about this? No? Okay. And then what we'll do next is to go over the class notes, okay, the one that is on the website. So let's see here. And I'll be doing, I'll be doing the homework assignment a little bit. In other words, what I'll do is I'm going to look at this slide here, look at the more complex example, and then what I'll do is I'm going to close some of the windows that I don't need anymore. All right, so we'll go ahead and start with a new spreadsheet, and I will show you how to do the indentations for this particular algorithm. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy the entire code here. We have the code. So the next step is, how do I put the indentations back to here? What process do I use to do that? That's the first thing we have to do. All right. How do you think I should do? As I said, I want to locate the innermost portion first. Okay. How do you locate the innermost portion of this pseudocode?
The middle one.
The middle one, okay? So we can start with, okay, how do we identify a nesting first? Okay, how do we identify, oh, this whole thing is containing this thing here. A while starts with while and ends with and while. Okay. So when you see a while, it's almost like seeing an open parenthesis, and the end while is almost like a closed parenthesis. If you know how to match parentheses in an expression, then you know how to do this already. If you want to locate the innermost portion, that means you're looking at this portion here, because this portion does not contain any while or if anymore, and yet it is itself contained within a while. Does it make any sense?
Yeah.
So far? Okay. So when you locate this part and say, oh, this is supposed to be within the while loop from line 5 to line 8, so this needs to be indented, you go ahead and use the indent tool here, click it once, and now this part is indented. Then you look at the next level of nesting in this case. So you say, okay, this one is already done. Okay, I'm done with this portion already, but is it a part of something else? Well, it looks that way because this entire block is inside this block here, which is inside the while and the end while here. So this entire block from line 4 to line 9 also needs to be indented. So now we have the entire block indented. You can also see the inside one is double indented, because when you indent a block twice, it is also going to indent it one more time. So I'm done with the indentation of this particular pseudocode. Are there any questions about this step here? No? Okay. The next thing we have to do is to trace it. To trace something like this, we're going to start with a new sheet, or start with a new window first, so that we can look at a different portion of the same document. And because it has loops, we need comments. line number. And then we have three variables here. We have x, y, and the sum. These do not need to be too wide. Line number doesn't have to be that wide either. And now we have all the columns labeled, and we can get started. In the homework assignment, I told you ahead of time that we don't need specific values to start with the traces. So that means all the variables can be assumed unknown because they will all get initialized at the right time. We start with line 1, x gets a value of 0. And then we move on to line 2, the sum is also reset to 0. Then we get to line 3. On line 3, we evaluate the condition, x is less than 3 is true, very good. And this is the trace convention, so you have to make sure that you follow the convention, which means you have to mention the condition that we are evaluating, and also tell me whether it is true or not. So this way I can tell why do you make a decision to get into the loop or get out of the loop. Since the condition is true for a while loop, where do we go next? We move on to line 4, y gets initialized to 0, and then where do we go? After line 4, where do we go? What is sequential to line 4? Line 5, very good. Line 5 is the beginning of another loop. This is the inner loop. Y is less than 2 is true because y just got initialized to 0. Are we still doing okay so far at this point?
Yeah.
After line 5, where do we go?
Line 6.
Since the condition is true, we get into the loop, so we continue execution on line 6. Are we still doing okay so far with this trace? Okay. Line 6 is going to increment the value of y by 1. So what I'll do is I'm going to say, oh, it equals to the previous value of y plus 1. Okay. Yes, I know 0 plus 1 is 1, but I'm going to use this method just so that you are exposed to a way to use a spreadsheet to do the calculations. Then we move on to line 7. What does line 7 do? Line 7 is going to add all the three variables together and then use it to update the sum itself. The sum itself currently has a value of 0, y has a value of 1, and x has a value of 0. So it becomes this value plus this value plus that value.
You use shift, and you press shift, and then you.
No, I just type it on the command line and then click it. There's no shift click, just click. Okay, and obviously 0 plus 1 plus 0 is 1.
So you
and then
equal and then just clicked over it?
Yeah, you start with an equal. Basically, what the equal symbol means to the Excel spreadsheet is instead of typing the actual content or the value of a cell, you want that value to be calculated by other cells or by some kind of expression. Yeah, it's a pretty handy feature. You will find this useful in your science classes too. Yeah.
So then,
Go ahead. Yeah, okay, you go ahead and then I'll
so then you just use any calculation sign you want. So you could put in the division symbol.
Yeah, you can basically perform most calculations you can do with a calculator. Go ahead.
Did you add the addition sign then?
The addition sign, yes, I have to press the addition symbol. You can also use sum if you want to, but I just use add in this case because it's simple. Yep. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
But the whole thing, can we just for the x, can we just keep putting 0 down so we actually, instead of
Yeah, you can,
okay.
But that would mean there will be a lot of numbers on the screen. This way, we know exactly when it was updated last.
Okay.
Yep. Well, the question now is right after line 7, where are we going? Okay, first of all, this is the end of the body of a loop. Okay, so when we're done with that, we know that we cannot just continue with line 9 because it's a loop. We have to go back to the beginning of a loop. But there are two, quote-unquote, two beginning of loops here because we know that we can go back to line 5, or should we go back to line 3? Because both of those are beginning of loops, and we are in both loops at the same time right now. So the question is, which one is matching this end while on line 8? Line 5. Yep, exactly. So we're going back to line 5 and not line 3. Line 5 is re-evaluating y is less than 2. It is still true. We go back to line 6. We add 1 to this one here. So I'm going to use this little trick here and just say it equals to its previous value plus 1. And then we go back to line 7 again. And line 7 is recalculating the value of the sum. And this time it refers to its previous value plus the current value of y plus the current value of x. And then we go back to line 5 again. Y is now 2. 2 is less than 2 is false. And then where do we go? We know we are getting out of a loop.
9.
We go to line 9. That is correct. Do we have any questions about why we are proceeding to line 9 at this point? Questions? Okay, so on line 9 we are adding 1 to x here. And then after line 9, where do we go? We go back to line 3 because we are at the end of the outer loop, so we have to go back to the beginning of the outer loop and re-evaluate the condition so that we can decide, do we have another iteration to go? And in this case, the answer is yes, we do have another iteration to go. So we're going to perform another iteration. The next iteration will look kind of like this one. In other words, if you look at the line numbers, you will just be seeing this pattern again. And if you look at the values of the variables, it'll be similar to this, but not exactly the same. Okay, because the sum gets incrementing, keeps incrementing, and but the value of y will still remain the same as this, and then the value of x will get incremented to 2 instead of 1. So for the most part, I can do a copy and paste, but after we do the copy and paste, we have to make some changes. So I'm going to do the copy and paste first. The changes I have to make here is this one is for this guy, because it has to refer to its old value, which is up here. It has to refer to the current value of y, which is here, and it also has to refer to the current value of x, which is here. So that's why it has to be updated. This one needs to be updated as well, because if you look at this equation here, this is good because if I click that, you can see the color coding. You can see it's referring to E19. E19 is correct. That is the old value of the sum itself. It's referring to D21, which is also good because that really is the current value of y. But the value of x is off by 1, okay? Because before the first iteration, the initialization of x is off by 1, is not at the right place. So that means we have to update this one to here. I just dragged it. That's pretty handy. And then press the enter key, and that one is updated correctly here. And this one is also incorrect because we have to use the same method here to say that it is its old value plus 1. So now it is 2. Are we doing okay so far with this trick here? I mean, obviously you can manually go through all the steps to get to the same result here. I'm just illustrating how to use a spreadsheet to do some of the calculations for us. Once we know that it's going to repeat the same thing over and over again. Yep.
Should you also copy and paste the comments?
That is correct. I should have copied and pasted the comments as well. So now we have to, let's see. We just copy this block here. Maybe up to here. Down here. All right. Yep. Okay. Now, after this is all set up, this pattern is going to repeat itself one more time because when you look at the value of x at this point, it is only 2. But tech, I cannot see which column is which column anymore because the header is now scrolled off the screen. Now, let me show you a really cool feature of a spreadsheet again. 2. This is another really cool feature, is you can split it like this. Let me do it again. When you move your mouse cursor all the way up here, kind of like right on top of the scroll bar itself, you can drag it. When you drag it, it opens up it splits the display area into 2 panes, and then you can scroll independently. So now you can scroll the top part the way, in a way that does not affect the bottom part. So now I can look at which column is which column, but without having to scroll the entire screen up and down all the time. All right. right, so one more time, one more copy and paste, and we are done. So we'll go from line 3 again, and stop here, copy, paste, and this time everything is done correctly because the relative positions of the equations have not changed in this case. Just to double check, okay, just to double check, we look at this one, click in the formula editing area, and we just want to find out whether it is referring to the correct cells. Okay. The first one is referring to the current value of sum, which is the 8, the blue one. Yep, that's the right place. The second one refers to the current
Position of the screen.
the screen just died.
No.
My screen is still up here, but that projector just died.
Oh, I wouldn't say it died, but somehow lost connection because it is still displaying something.
Yeah, it did a click. So I'm gonna turn it off, turn it back on again. If that doesn't work, I'm gonna whack it with something.
Works for the phone.
Do it the engineering way.
Duct tape fixes everything.
Scotty, we'll do it the Scotty way.
Raytheon reset.
Sorry?
Raytheon reset.
Raytheon reset.
Turn it on, turn it off.
There are. I heard from someone who worked for a data center before, and they were running Windows Server to for Exchange. So they were running a whole bunch of servers in Windows Server versions of some kind, and the way they ensure reliability is somebody is hired to turn off all the boxes and turn them all back on again.
Huh.
And that person is on the roller skate. Okay, we see. That's a good sign. It has to warm up enough, and then it'll try to display the content. The screen is actually dimmer than usual. Does anyone notice it today? I think the bulb is ready. It's about to go. That's going to be a few $100. It should find the signal. Nope, it's not finding it. That means the connection to the computer is somehow lost. And we have a whole bunch of cables here.
Hopefully it's not on the box. It's going to be a whole nother problem.
It's probably one of these boxes here. Okay, so we have this box that has all these connections.
Alright, see you Thursday.
Huh?
See you Thursday.
Still,
Oh, y'all just have to huddle up close to the one.
nah, I just have to kind of write everything out to myself here.
Wasn't that pleasant.
No, it's not getting it. Let's see.
Good luck copy and pasting.
I just need a long stick to kind of touch that connector. Doesn't look like that would be an issue because that one is screwed in. I don't think it's. I don't think that's the issue.
I know, I checked where the feet of the guy sitting up there.
Mhm.
If you shuffle your feet, kick a cable.
Nope, I wasn't. Nope, they were too far away. The cable comes from here. One goes to the computer. No, right before it went, I heard a click, like, tick, and then it, went out.
Which direction do you get a click? Well, there's a click up here. They give you a click over there.
Yeah. Nope, that's not it.
Get out the monkey chart.
Well, I can try one more thing here. Oh, interesting. It's only displaying one display now. It used to display two. Okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try to reset the computer and see whether it helps. So I'm gonna stop the recorder first. Equipment failure.